You are carrying so much. You're thinking ahead, you're making the to-do list, you're planning everything out, and making sure that everything gets done around the house. And it feels like your husband doesn't even notice. And he's definitely not doing very much of it. You've brought it up so many times, but nothing changes. What if I told you that there's a way to actually get through to him without feeling like you're nagging and without getting into an argument? Well, there is a way. I am Lindsay. This is Loving with Intention, and we are just going to dive right in. And this is actually part 2 of this conversation. So I highly recommend checking out part 1 as well, because you'll need those tips to apply the ones in today's chat. You can watch them in any order. I will link that in the description box. So we really don't want to be asking our partner for help. That implies that it's your job and that you need help. So first up, right out the gates, this is about shared responsibilities, and I'm so stoked to chat about it. And the last point that I'm sharing today is actually the most important point. Without it, you're not likely to see any change at all. So let's just get right to it. I want to start by sharing a little story from my own relationship. We used to go camping a lot. Every single camp trip, I would make the list ahead of time. I would remember all the little important things that we needed. I would make the ice for the cooler days before. And then the morning of camping, I'd be doing the packing, getting the house tidied up, making sure we were organized for our cat care. And my partner would be sitting on the couch, sipping his coffee, looking at his computer. And back then, I didn't really vocalize my frustration in a healthy way. Instead, I would loudly pack things up. I would let out big sighs, I would huff and puff, I would respond in snappy tones when he would talk to me. Sometimes he'd be like, I'll get up and get going soon. And I would just be like, okay, because I've been going for 2 hours already. One day, I was feeling super annoyed, and I went to put something in the van to pack, and I closed the front door like extra hard. I wouldn't call it a slam, but I closed it really hard. And then I stopped outside the door and recognized just like how fired up I was. I took some deep breaths, and then in this moment of wisdom, I realized, oh my goodness, I know from experience that he is about to pack his own bag very quickly, impressively quickly, and then load up the van with what I had packed. He's going to strap our surfboards on the roof. He's going to drive for the next 3 hours while I'm free to relax and enjoy my coffee in the passenger seat. And then when we get there, he's going to pop up the van, he's going to make the fire while I set up the other stuff, and then he's going to do all of the cooking for the whole trip. And he was also working the night before. You see where I'm going with this. When I was super frustrated, I was only seeing what was happening in that moment. I wasn't looking at the big picture and the fact that he was doing a lot that I wasn't doing. So this was a huge mindset shift for me for that specific scenario and for our entire relationship, because now I can take that whole picture into account. I actually encourage him to chill if he wants to at times when I would have been totally frustrated in the past, or encourage him to focus on other things while I take care of what I'm taking care of, and he does the same for me. So I also realized in that moment of wisdom that I was really craving some verbal appreciation for all that I was doing. But the way that I was acting was not a way that would make somebody be like, oh wow, I really appreciate everything you're doing, while you snap at me and slam, not slam the door. Ugh, so many lessons in this one moment. If I wanted to actually feel seen and heard, I knew I had to change how I communicated, and that appreciating him for his efforts in other areas was super important, which I totally dove into in part 1 of these videos. And you can actually grab, side note, grab my free superpowered appreciation in the description box, because I found, and my individual clients have found, when you start giving appreciation, frequent superpowered appreciations, you start to hear them back from your partner. It is the best. And these go beyond just like a quick thank you or a quick I appreciate. They are superpowered. It is free. It's in the description box. And the result is hearing appreciation from your husband and seeing him do more. So it is like a win-win, win-win-win. Anyways, so grab it. So good. So the full picture, that piece is so important. And that's only one piece. You might still be like, okay, I can see the whole picture. He does a lot of things in our lives, and I'm still doing and holding way more on the day-to-day, and it's overwhelming. So I totally, totally get that. Let's talk more about that. One thing we get to recognize is that your husband might do things differently than you, and that has to be okay. Maybe he doesn't approach the household tasks in the same way that you do. Maybe his idea of straightening out the mess of shoes at the front door or loading the dishwasher looks a lot different than how you would do it, and it might drive you a little crazy. And it doesn't mean that his way is wrong. And your way isn't wrong either. There's room for both of you to have different approaches without turning it into a battle. And the unfortunate truth is, if he does it his way and you redo it or tell him how he didn't do it good enough, he's not likely to keep doing it at all. This doesn't mean you just have to settle for things being half done in your eyes. This is actually that classic advice that we all hear: pick your battles. Picking your battles is about focusing on what matters most to you. It is so easy and understandable to get caught up in the small details and every little thing when you're feeling completely overwhelmed with the weight of the mental and physical load. And focusing on all of those things actually increases the weight for yourself. This is where we get to step back into the bigger picture, choosing what feels most important to talk about and what you can let go of for the sake of harmony in your relationship. And this totally goes both ways. I know that my partner doesn't agree with the way that I do so many things in our life, or I do them differently than what he would do, and vice versa. And we just kind of choose to live with those things. Does he still put his dirty clothes right beside the laundry bin? He sure does. And it used to make me so mad, but now I'm like, whatever, he's tired after his 12-hour shift. It's not a priority to him or even something on his radar. It takes me 2 seconds to throw it in the laundry bin. And I actually think it's kind of hilarious now. Like, what? It is right beside the laundry bin. It's funny. Humans, bless us. What the heck? And I know that I also do things that are just as ridiculous as that because humans. There's a harmony. And just FYI, I would never say anything in my content that my partner doesn't approve of me sharing because I don't want to air out his dirty laundry without him knowing, literally and figuratively. So maybe for you, clothes beside the laundry hamper is actually one of the things that feels super important, and that's okay. It's just about choosing what is important, and that leads us to how to actually have these conversations. So I broke down painting the dream in part 1, which is crucial. When you're painting the dream of what you would love, we also need to bring in curiosity and truly hearing their experience. So that's what we're talking about now. So let's just stick with the dirty clothes example. If you're sharing, you would love for your husband to put his dirty clothes in the hamper, go into it thinking curiosity, love, compassion. Because if your partner has a different view, it is so easy to get into judgment or right versus wrong. But choosing curiosity means you open up the space for deeper understanding and connection. What's going on in their world? What's stressing them out? What are they thinking? What's a priority to them? Which can be super freaking hard if when you bring it up, they get defensive or they get critical when you share what you would love. And this is a super common human experience, like I talked about in part 1, if they do that. So if you share what you would love and he says something like, is it really that big of a deal? Look at all the stuff you leave on the counter. This could easily get into a familiar back and forth where you just leave feeling more frustrated. So choosing to start a new pattern to get different results means pausing, taking deep breaths, bringing in curiosity. It's not okay, of course, that he responded in that way, and we can't change him. What we can do is remember that under things like defensiveness, criticism, and other relationship poisons, there are unmet needs, worries, fears, wounds, hurts, so many things. So maybe in this moment, his need was to be seen for his best intentions, or like me when I was huffing and puffing and being snappy for appreciation. We use these unhealthy strategies to express ourselves and try to get our needs met. We all do this. And when you can take those deep breaths and bring in curiosity, you can actually change the dance around this. So they're like, it's a really big deal. Look at all your stuff on the counter. Your response might sound like, deep breaths. You're right. I do have all my stuff on the counter. I can see why you'd point that out when I'm talking about the dirty clothes on the floor. And I also should have said, I really appreciate that you always make dinner after work. Or, you might say something like, I really appreciate that you've been working all day and I see you in that. You might hear me say that and be like, ugh, why am I being kind when he just snapped at me or got defensive or criticized me? And I get that. It can even feel like you're being walked all over in that moment. And if you look back at every time you've had this conversation, have you had positive results? Have things changed? Has he heard you? Has he appreciated you? If the answer is no, it might be time to try a new strategy, even if it's hard. And addressing his dismissal and his defensiveness, you are way more likely to be heard around this if you bring it up outside of a triggered moment. Bringing it up in that moment is likely to go sideways because everybody's nervous system is starting to pop off, which means it's not the best time to chat. So bringing it up outside the triggered moment, well, that's a whole other chat that we could have, but just know it isn't about you accepting his behavior. It's about you changing the dance so that you can both feel seen and heard. You seeing him, validating him, and appreciating him speaks to his nervous system and helps him feel seen. It helps you get into your heart so that you can see the whole picture, and you're much more likely to hear him say, I get it. It must be annoying to pick up my clothes after you've just cleaned the whole house. I just got off work and I'm thinking about showering and then I'm just thinking about relaxing. Or maybe he tells you, I got off work and I'm so in my head and stressed about work that clothes cleaning is not even on my radar. Or maybe he says, I actually throw them there because I don't know if I'm going to rewear them, and then I kind of forget that they're there. Him sharing this with you, this allows you again to validate him and see him. Like, yeah, that makes sense. I know how stressful your work is, and I get why that's on your mind and you're not really thinking about the clothes. Or, oh, I didn't realize that, you might rewear them later and that you totally forget. That makes sense. Even if you wouldn't put your clothes on the floor if you were thinking about rewearing them again, his experience can make sense to you because it's his experience and you get to see him. You know how he moves through the world. His experience makes sense. So from this place, this back and forth of hearing and validation, you are so much more likely to be able to co-create an agreement around this. And when he starts to see and appreciate you, you'd be surprised at the things that become less important to you. In the end, you might be like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Throw your clothes on the floor. No big deal. I will grab them. And this really happens. I see it with clients all the time too. After we see and hear and validate, it's like, oh, I just needed to be seen in this. I need to feel appreciated. So far, we have talked about picking your battles, curiosity, and listening to validate and appreciate. So now, you and your husband might have totally different views on the importance of a clean house, or what that even means or looks like. This is where we get to bring in more curiosity. I have worked with clients where they discovered that the husband would way rather have a messy kitchen after dinner and deal with it in the morning if it meant more quality time that night, which was his love language. While the wife, on the other hand, she felt like she couldn't even relax into quality time until the kitchen was clean. Is it a surprise that her love language was acts of service? I think not. So both of these experiences and desires are so totally valid and make all of the sense in the world. But if you get stuck in seeing what's just on the surface, he might think, oh, she just cares so much about cleaning. Or she might think, oh, he doesn't care at all about cleaning. It would make sense there would be tension and disagreements. But when we get curious about what's under the surface, then we actually have something to work with. And you might also find, if you're having these conversations, maybe cleaning was a source of contention for his parents growing up. They would fight about it, or he got in trouble or criticized or yelled at for cleaning the wrong way or having a messy room. These things that might seem small, they actually leave an imprint on our nervous systems and create routines and patterns. So it makes so much sense. Curiosity for the win. So I touched on co-creating agreements earlier, but this is super, super important in relationships, and it's usually only possible when you both feel seen and heard. I feel like I'm very bouncy today. This chair is very bouncy. So when you feel seen and heard. So what does this look like? Offering suggestions back and forth for what might work better for you both. If your partner gives you a suggestion and it doesn't land well, it's meeting that with love and suggesting something else until you can get to a place where you're both on the same page. Again, super important, this works best when you both feel seen, heard, lots of love, curiosity, appreciation, validation, empathy, and understanding. So often we try to co-create agreements or make plans and routines without any of that, and it's no wonder that they don't stick. So if you're the only one here right now, you might be thinking, well, how can I get him to do all those things for me? You can't make him, but when you change your steps in the dance, amazing things happen. Back in the hard days in my relationship, I got a relationship coach without my partner, and by the end of the 8-week program I was in, I was feeling seen, supported, and appreciated in ways that I did not think were possible, all because of how I was showing up differently. So it is so possible. And one last point before I get to the final, most important piece is strengths. When I started to really understand that what comes easy to me doesn't come as easy to my partner and vice versa, it was very eye-opening. So I'm not like the cleanest, tidiest person on the planet, but if I need to tackle a messy room or organize a closet or area, I can dive in and get it done without thinking about the steps or what comes next. It just happens. And it's not the same for him. And it would be easy for me to think that he's just lazy or he's not trying, but the reality is it's just more of a strength for me than it is for him. in the very same way that it would take me 2 hours to make a recipe because I have to keep going back to it. I have to measure everything out perfectly, and then I keep getting confused about where I'm at. There are things boiling over, the smoke alarm's going off. Like, I'm legit that bad. But for him, he can whip up anything with ease. It's not because I'm lazy or because I'm not trying hard enough. It is really just not a strength for me. It's stressful. It is confusing. It is overwhelming. So strengths are so important to recognize. And this isn't to say that if keeping track of the to-do list and carrying it out is your strength and not your husband's, that you just have to accept it and roll with it. That is not what I'm saying at all, thank goodness. It's just a really, really helpful reminder so that we can watch those stories that we tell ourselves, like he's just lazy or he's not trying, because usually those stories aren't true. And we talked more about stories in part 1. So lastly, the most important piece, without this, you are not likely to see change. It is consistency. Consistency in all the things. This isn't about having one conversation where you paint the dream and validate and empathize. This isn't about 3 days of appreciating him. It is about starting to create new long-term patterns for yourself. Consistency is key. It's how we create change. If we imagine you go to the gym for 3 days in a row and you're feeling like an energy boost, and then you stop. And now it's been a month. You look back and you're like, well, I knew it. The gym doesn't work for me. It wasn't the gym that didn't work for you, so you stopped going. Been there. And if you appreciate or have loving conversations for a few days in your relationship and you're really like going hard, and then you stop, and then a month from now, it would make perfect sense if you looked back and you're like, oh, nothing's really changed. And if you're like, well, crap, I really wanted a quick fix. This seems like too much work, Lindsay. I have so been there. And this is what loving with intention, ding, 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 is all about. We create the change we want in our relationships when we get intentional. Waiting for your husband to change or to start trying harder or to even make him change. If that worked, he would have changed by now. And I'm cheering you on. Even though it is work and effort, it gets to be fun, especially when you start seeing the wins. Wins can happen really quickly when you start to change the dance. I love so much celebrating wins with clients. It's motivating, it's inspiring. Things can totally change. Your intentional action is to grab the Superpowered Appreciation handout below in the description box. When you pour into this, you see it in return. It's exactly where I would start. And appreciation helps you with all of the things that we've talked about here. And the video on the screen is part 1, and I definitely recommend watching it if you missed it, because these are the steps I would start with if you want to see change. Oh my goodness, you have got this. I am sending so much love into your day. Remember, nothing changes if nothing changes, so that's why we get to choose to lean in. Let's have a super intentional week.